Welcome to the world's countries, and welcome to another slow journey through the map of our planet. In this series, we are taking our time to move step by step through every nation on Earth. We do not rush, and we do not aim for excitement. Instead, we linger, we describe, and we unfold layer after layer, until even the smallest detail feels familiar. These episodes are designed for relaxation, for gentle curiosity, and for sleep. You might listen to them with your eyes closed, you might use them as background while resting, or you might follow along while drifting into slumber. However you choose to listen, this space is made for calm, steady storytelling. In this episode, our focus is on Peru. It is a country that you may already associate with high mountains, ancient ruins, or colorful textiles. You may have heard of Machu Picchu, of the Incas, or of Lake Titicaca. Perhaps you have seen a picture of llamas standing in the mist, or read about the Nazca lines stretching across the desert floor. All of these are indeed part of Peru, but there is much more. Over the course of this episode, we will look at Peru from many angles. We will begin with its geography and location, moving slowly through coastlines, rivers, mountains, and forests. We will pause to consider its people and society, its languages and traditions. We will talk about government, symbols, and the economy. We will step into history, ancient and modern, before coming back to life in the country today. Later, we will wander into the realm of travel, of fun facts, of famous people and cultural contributions. Finally, we will take a step back and think about Peru's strengths and challenges before drawing our journey to a quiet close. It is important for us to say, before we go further, that mistakes can happen. While we do our best to be accurate, there may be errors or details we miss, or descriptions that someone from Peru might see differently. If you are Peruvian, if you live there, or if you know the country well, we would be very grateful for your comments. Corrections, additions, and clarifications all help make this project better. We welcome your voices and we learn from them. The goal of this series is not only to share, but also to listen and to grow more precise over time. So let us settle into Peru. Imagine the map of South America and picture the country's long stretch along the Pacific Ocean. Visualize the Andes, running like a spine down its middle. Picture the lowlands spreading eastward into the Amazon basin. Already, with just these images, Peru begins to take shape as a place of contrasts, of altitudes and climates, of coast and mountain and jungle. Over the next hours, we will fill these outlines with more detail, slowly, patiently, gently. As always, we will move at a measured pace. There will be no rush from one fact to the next. Instead, each section is a chance to pause, to breathe, and to imagine. You may not remember all the details, and that is perfectly fine. This episode, like all others in this series, is not meant to test you. It is here simply to accompany you, to create a space of quiet exploration, and to give you something steady and neutral to follow while the rest of the world slows down. So, with that, let us begin our journey. Let us step quietly into the landscapes, the people, and the stories of Peru. The country awaits us, and we will take our time with it. Geography and location. Peru lies along the western edge of South America, stretching for more than 2,000 kilometers from north to south. If you look at a map of the continent, you will notice its long, narrow strip of Pacific coastline, and behind that, rising sharply, the towering wall of the Andes Mountains. To the east, the mountains fall away into vast lowlands that merge into the Amazon basin, one of the most extensive rainforest regions on Earth. Peru's position is defined by this meeting of ocean, mountain, and jungle, and it gives the country a remarkable geographical variety that few nations can match. Peru shares borders with 5 neighbors. To the north lie Ecuador and Colombia, to the east Brazil, to the southeast Bolivia, and to the south Chile. Along the west, the Pacific Ocean forms a natural boundary, giving Peru a coastline that is both a resource and a challenge. The country covers more than 1 million square kilometers, making it the third largest nation in South America after Brazil and Argentina. Its size means that when we speak of Peru, we are really speaking of many different landscapes, climates, and ways of life, all contained within a single set of borders. The Andes dominate the heart of Peru. This immense mountain range runs the length of the country and divides it into very different regions. In the west, between the Andes and the sea, lies a long coastal strip. Much of this coastline is arid desert, interrupted here and there by fertile valleys where rivers flow down from the mountains to the ocean. These valleys, though narrow, have long supported agriculture and human settlement. Cities such as Lima, the capital, stand on this coast, looking out toward the Pacific. The climate here is dry, often foggy, with very little rain, yet the sea provides rich fishing grounds that have been vital for both local communities and the national economy. Turning inland, the mountains rise dramatically. The Peruvian Andes are among the highest peaks in the Americas, with many summits climbing well above 6,000 meters. Mount Huascarán, at about 6,768 meters, is the highest point in the country. These mountains are not only high, but also varied. Some ranges are covered with snow and glaciers, others with bare rock and windswept plateaus. Valleys cut through them, often holding rivers that begin as glacial streams and then grow into powerful flows. The altitude means that life in the Andes is different from life on the coast. Air is thin, temperatures are cooler, and traditional farming must adapt to shorter growing seasons. Yet the mountains have long been the heartland of Peru's indigenous cultures, and they remain home to millions today. East of the mountains lies a third great region, the Amazonian lowlands. Here the landscape opens into vast expanses of forest, rivers, and wetlands. This part of Peru is part of the Amazon basin, one of the largest ecosystems in the world. The climate is hot, humid, and rainy for much of the year. The vegetation is dense, the biodiversity astonishing, and the sense of distance immense. Towns and villages are scattered along the rivers, which serve as the main highways of the forest. Airplanes and boats connect communities where roads are scarce or impossible. The Amazon region is less densely populated than the coast or the Andes, but it forms a crucial part of Peru's geography, providing natural resources, cultural richness, and ecological importance. Among the many rivers of Peru, the Amazon itself is perhaps the most famous. While the main river system flows deep into Brazil, two of its principal tributaries, the Marañón and the Ucayali, begin in the Peruvian Andes. Their meeting point near the city of Iquitos is often considered the place where the Amazon proper is born. From there, the great river makes its way eastward, across the continent to the Atlantic Ocean. Other rivers, such as the Madre de Dios and the Huallaga, also shape the land and provide lifelines for people and wildlife. Another remarkable feature of Peru is Lake Titicaca, lying high in the Andes along the border with Bolivia. At over 3,800 meters above sea level, it is the highest navigable lake in the world. It covers more than 8,000 square kilometers and is dotted with islands. The lake has long been central to the cultures of the Andean highlands, providing fish, water, and a setting for myths and legends. Even today, communities live on floating reed islands, continuing traditions that have endured for centuries. Peru's climate is as varied as its geography. Along the coast, the climate is desert-like, with mild temperatures and little rainfall, influenced by the cold Humboldt Current that flows northward along the Pacific. In the Andes, the climate changes with altitude. Valleys may be temperate, while higher elevations are cold year-round. Snow and frost are common above 4,000 meters. In the Amazon, by contrast, the climate is hot and humid, with heavy rains and lush vegetation. Because of these differences, a journey across Peru can feel like a journey across several countries, each with its own environment and rhythm of life. The natural world of Peru is equally diverse. The coastal deserts hold unique plant and animal species adapted to dryness. The Andes host alpacas, llamas, and vicuñas, along with high-altitude plants that survive in thin air. The Amazon teems with life, from jaguars and tapirs to countless species of birds, insects, and fish. This biological variety has made Peru one of the most biodiverse nations on Earth, a place where ecological zones change with every few hundred meters of altitude or every few kilometers of distance. This geography has deep effects on human settlement and activity. On the coast, large cities grow where water is available, relying on rivers to sustain them. In the mountains, communities adapt to altitude, building terraced fields and cultivating crops such as potatoes and quinoa that thrive in cooler conditions. In the Amazon, life follows the rivers and communities depend on fishing, small-scale agriculture, and the forest itself. Travel across these regions is often difficult, and historically, they have been somewhat separate worlds within one nation. Even today, moving from the coast to the highlands or from the highlands to the jungle can feel like entering a new country. For travelers and residents alike, the geography of Peru offers both beauty and challenge. It provides stunning landscapes, desert cliffs dropping into the Pacific, snow-covered peaks against blue skies, winding rivers through endless green forests. But it also brings natural risks. Earthquakes, landslides, floods, and droughts are all part of life here. The land is generous, but it demands respect, and it has shaped the resilience of the people who live upon it. Thus, when we think of Peru geographically, we think of contrasts and connections. A narrow coast, a towering spine of mountains, and an immense rainforest. A land where rivers carve valleys, where lakes rest high in the sky, where climates shift with every step uphill or downhill. Peru is not just a country on the map. It is a collection of landscapes, each with its own face, and together they form a nation of extraordinary variety. People and society. When we turn from the mountains and rivers of Peru to the people who live there, we find a society that is as diverse and layered as its geography. Just as the coastline, the Andes, and the Amazon create very different landscapes, so too do they create very different ways of life, languages, and traditions. Peru is a country where ancient cultures and modern cities exist side by side, and where history continues to shape the present in visible and invisible ways. Peru today has a population of around 34 million people. Most Peruvians live in cities, and about one-third live in the metropolitan area of Lima, the capital. The contrast between bustling urban life and the quiet rhythm of rural villages is one of the striking features of the country. In the coastal cities, modern high-rises, busy traffic, and international businesses dominate. In the highlands, many small towns still revolve around traditional markets, festivals, and farming practices. In the Amazon, communities are smaller, often centered on rivers, and connected to each other more by boats than by roads. The people of Peru reflect centuries of mixing and migration. The largest group is mestizo, meaning people of mixed indigenous and European heritage. This group forms the majority, but there are also large indigenous populations, as well as communities of Afro-Peruvians and smaller groups descended from Chinese, Japanese, and European immigrants. Each of these groups has contributed to Peru's cultural identity, and the result is a rich blend that is unique to the country. Indigenous peoples remain especially important to Peru's cultural fabric. They include Quechua-speaking communities in the Andes and Aymara-speaking communities around Lake Titicaca. These groups trace their heritage back to the Inca Empire and even earlier civilizations. In many highland villages, traditional clothing is still worn, with brightly colored textiles and distinctive hats marking regional identities. Agricultural techniques, music, dance, and festivals have deep roots in indigenous traditions, and they continue to shape life for millions. At the same time, indigenous communities often face social and economic disadvantages, particularly in education, healthcare, and political influence. Balancing respect for these traditions with the demands of modern development is an ongoing challenge in Peruvian society. Language is another layer of this diversity. Spanish is the official language spoken by the majority of Peruvians, but Quechua and Aymara are also recognized as official languages in areas where they are widely used. In the Amazon, dozens of smaller indigenous languages are still spoken, each tied to a specific group and way of life. The coexistence of these languages is both a cultural treasure and a challenge. For many Peruvians, Spanish is necessary for education, government, and business, yet their native language remains central to their identity and daily communication. Efforts have been made to preserve and promote these languages, including bilingual education programs in schools, though success varies from region to region. Religion in Peru is similarly diverse, though Roman Catholicism is dominant, a legacy of Spanish colonization. Churches, cathedrals, and religious festivals mark the calendar, especially events like Holy Week and the Lord of Miracles procession in Lima, one of the largest religious gatherings in the world. Yet indigenous spiritual traditions have not disappeared. Instead, they often blend with Catholic practices, creating forms of worship unique to Peru. Rituals honoring mountains, rivers, and the earth, known as Pachamama, still hold meaning for many, especially in the Andes. This blending of faiths reflects Peru's broader pattern of cultural mixing, where old and new exist together. Family life is central in Peruvian society. Households often extend beyond the nuclear family, including grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Social life is closely tied to family networks, and gatherings for meals, birthdays, and festivals are important. In rural areas, community ties are especially strong, with neighbors working together during planting or harvest seasons, or supporting each other in times of need. In the cities, life can feel more fragmented, but family remains a primary anchor in people's lives. The daily realities of life vary greatly depending on where one lives. In Lima, many people work in offices, shops, factories, or service industries. Life is fast-paced, traffic is heavy, and international influences are strong. In the Andes, farming still provides livelihoods for many, with potatoes, maize, and quinoa growing on terraced fields, and alpacas and llamas providing wool. In the Amazon, fishing, small-scale farming, and forest resources sustain communities, often with limited access to healthcare or modern infrastructure. These differences mean that inequality is not only about income, but also about geography. Where one is born often determines opportunities in education, health, and work. Peru's society is also young. A large portion of the population is under the age of 30, which brings both energy and challenges. Young people are shaping the country's future, but they also face hurdles such as finding stable jobs, affording education, and navigating political uncertainty. Urban migration continues, with many young people leaving rural areas to seek opportunities in cities, which in turn creates pressure on housing, services, and employment. At the same time, Peru is experiencing cultural renewal. Indigenous traditions are being rediscovered and celebrated, from music and weaving to food and festivals. Afro-Peruvian music and dance, with its deep rhythms and history of resilience, has gained international recognition. Japanese Peruvian cuisine, known as Nikkei, has blended traditions into world-renowned dishes. These cultural expressions are not only sources of pride, but also bridges between different parts of society. Life in Peru is not without difficulties. Poverty, especially in rural and Amazonian regions, remains a serious issue. Healthcare and education are unevenly distributed. Corruption and political instability often affect trust in government. Yet, despite these challenges, Peruvian society shows resilience. Community bonds remain strong, traditions endure, and creativity flourishes in art, food, and music. In many ways, this resilience is rooted in the diversity of the people, who continue to find ways to adapt and to hold on to what makes them unique. So when we think about the people of Peru, we must imagine not just a single society, but many societies woven together. Coastal city dwellers, Andean farmers, Amazonian communities, and urban migrants, all are part of the picture. The languages, religions, and traditions that fill Peru make it a country of contrasts, but also of connections. To understand Peru is to understand that variety and to see how geography, history, and culture have shaped its people into who they are today. Government and politics. To understand the government and politics of Peru, it helps to imagine a country where layers of history are always present, and where the tension between stability and change has been part of public life for generations. Peru is officially a unitary presidential republic. This means that power is concentrated in a single national government rather than divided into strong federal states, and that the president serves as both head of state and head of government. In theory, the system is clear and straightforward. In practice, politics in Peru has often been complicated, full of shifting alliances, moments of reform, and recurring struggles for trust. At the center of the political system is the president. Elected by popular vote, the president serves as the highest authority in the country, responsible for guiding domestic policies, foreign affairs, and national defense. Alongside the president is the Council of Ministers, a cabinet of appointed officials who lead the different ministries, from economy and finance to health, education, and culture. These ministers change frequently as political crises, disagreements, or shifting majorities in Congress lead to reshuffles. The presidency in Peru carries significant powers, but it is also subject to constant public pressure, and presidents often face protests, scandals, or calls for resignation during their term. The legislative branch is made up of a unicameral Congress. Unlike countries with two chambers, Peru has a single national body of lawmakers. Members of Congress are elected to represent different regions of the country, and they hold powers such as approving budgets, passing laws, and overseeing the actions of the executive branch. In recent years, the relationship between Congress and the presidency has often been tense. Disagreements have led to deadlock, dissolutions of Congress, or attempts to impeach presidents. These conflicts show the fragility of the political balance, but they also demonstrate that institutions continue to function, even in moments of strain. The judiciary forms the third branch of government. Its role is to interpret laws, ensure justice, and maintain constitutional order. The Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court, and various lower courts handle cases that range from local disputes to national controversies. Like other parts of the system, the judiciary has faced challenges with corruption and inefficiency, but it remains an important actor in defining the limits of political power. Elections are a cornerstone of Peru's democracy. Citizens over the age of 18 are required to vote, making turnout high by international standards. Election days in Peru are national events, with polling stations spread across urban neighborhoods and rural villages, even in remote mountain or jungle communities. The process reflects both the country's commitment to democratic participation and the logistical challenges of reaching citizens in such varied terrain. While the results of elections are respected, the period after often brings intense debate, protests, or allegations of irregularities, showing the lively and sometimes fragile nature of political life. Beyond the formal institutions, Peru's politics are shaped by its geography and its diversity. Coastal cities, highland towns, and Amazonian villages often have different priorities and political voices. Regionalism plays a strong role, and politicians must navigate the interests of farmers, urban workers, indigenous groups, business owners, and international investors. This variety means that no single political party has been able to dominate permanently. Instead, alliances rise and fall, and new movements often emerge quickly, reflecting the changing mood of society. Internationally, Peru is part of many organizations. It belongs to the United Nations, the Organization of American States, and regional groups such as the Andean Community. Trade agreements link it to neighbors and to global partners, opening markets for its minerals, agricultural products, and textiles. Diplomatically, Peru has often sought to balance its regional role with a desire for stability and cooperation, recognizing that its geography places it at a crossroads between the Pacific, the Andes, and the Amazon. One of the recurring themes in Peruvian politics has been instability. Over the last decades, the country has seen frequent changes of leadership, with presidents rarely finishing their terms without controversy or removal. Corruption scandals, public protests, and economic challenges have all played a part. At times, these struggles have weakened trust in institutions, but they have also shown the resilience of civil society, as people continue to demand accountability and reforms. In this sense, the turbulence of politics is not only a weakness, but also a sign of active engagement by citizens who expect more from their leaders. At the same time, Peru has seen moments of reform and progress. Efforts to decentralize government functions have given more responsibility to regional and local authorities, aiming to bring services closer to citizens outside Lima. New policies have been introduced to improve education, expand healthcare, and promote indigenous rights. Environmental concerns, especially regarding mining and deforestation, have also entered political debates, showing how global issues are becoming part of the national agenda. The role of the military in politics has changed over time. In the 20th century, Peru experienced military rule, and the armed forces played a direct role in governance. Today, the military is under civilian control, though it remains an influential institution, particularly in matters of security and border defense. In times of crisis, whether natural disasters or social unrest, the armed forces are often called upon to assist, reinforcing their presence in public life. For many ordinary Peruvians, politics can feel distant from daily struggles. Issues such as poverty, education, healthcare, and jobs are more pressing than debates in Congress or changes in leadership. Yet politics influences all of these areas, and shifts in government policies can have immediate effects on livelihoods. This connection between national decisions and local realities is part of the reason why political debates in Peru are often so intense and so personal. So when we look at government and politics in Peru, we see a picture of contrasts. On one side, there is the formal structure of a presidential republic, with laws, elections, and institutions. On the other side, there is the lived reality of frequent crises, public protests, and demands for change. These two sides exist together, shaping a political life that is dynamic, sometimes unstable, but always evolving. It reflects the broader character of Peru itself, a nation of variety, resilience, and constant adaptation. Flags, symbols, and heraldry. When we turn our attention from politics to the symbols of Peru, we enter a world where colors, shapes, and images carry meanings that reach far beyond decoration. A flag, a coat of arms, or a national anthem is never just an object. It is a way for a country to speak about itself, to project its history, and to remind its people of who they are. In Peru, these symbols are rich with layers of meaning, and they connect past and present in subtle ways. The national flag of Peru is simple in appearance, yet powerful in its design. It consists of 3 vertical bands of equal width: red on the left, white in the center, and red again on the right. The shade of red is vivid and striking, while the white stands out in bright contrast. Together, they create an image that is instantly recognizable. According to common interpretation, the red represents the blood shed by those who fought for independence, while the white symbolizes purity and peace. These meanings may sound familiar, since many flags carry similar associations, but in Peru they are tied to a particular history of struggle and hope. The design itself dates back to the early 19th century, when independence movements were sweeping through South America. Over the years, the arrangement of the colors has changed slightly, but the essential pattern has endured. There are in fact two main versions of the flag. The civil flag, which is the one most often flown by citizens, consists only of the red and white stripes. The state flag, used by government institutions, carries the national coat of arms in the center of the white band. This distinction allows the flag to serve both as a simple emblem of identity and as a more formal sign of authority. During national celebrations, sports events, or diplomatic occasions, both versions may be seen, fluttering side by side. The coat of arms itself adds further layers of meaning. At its heart, the shield is divided into three sections. One shows the vicuña, a graceful Andean animal related to the llama and alpaca, and a symbol of Peru's fauna and natural heritage. Another displays the cinchona tree, known for producing quinine, a substance historically used to treat malaria, and thus a symbol of Peru's flora and its contribution to medicine. The third section features a cornucopia spilling out coins, a representation of the country's mineral wealth. Together, these three images stand for the richness of Peru's land, its animals, its plants, and its resources beneath the soil. Above the shield is a simple civet crown of oak, while on either side are branches of laurel and palm, symbols of victory and peace. The whole design speaks to abundance, resilience, and pride in natural diversity. The national anthem of Peru adds another voice to this collection of symbols. Known as Himno Nacional del Peru, it was first adopted in the 19th century, and its lyrics celebrate independence and the courage of those who fought for freedom. Sung in Spanish, it has a solemn and proud tone, and it is performed at official ceremonies, schools, and sporting events. For many Peruvians, hearing the anthem is an emotional experience, linking them not only to their country, but also to its long history of challenges and triumphs. Symbols also appear in less formal ways. The image of the Andean condor, a bird with an enormous wingspan that soars over the mountains, is often used to represent freedom and strength. The Inca sun, a radiant golden disk, also appears in cultural contexts, recalling the deep heritage of pre-Columbian civilizations. Llamas and alpacas are frequently seen on souvenirs and handicrafts, serving as both cultural icons and practical symbols of the highlands. These images, while not official, are powerful reminders of how identity is shaped by the natural world and by ancient traditions. The use of symbols is most visible during national holidays. On July 28th, Peru celebrates its Independence Day, and flags appear everywhere, on houses, in public squares, and along city streets. Citizens are even encouraged by law to display the national flag on this day, making the red and white stripes a unifying sight across the country. In villages, towns, and cities, processions, parades, and concerts bring the symbols of the nation to life, reminding people of shared values and common bonds. Sport is another setting where symbols take on special importance. The Peruvian national football team wears jerseys in red and white, often featuring the iconic diagonal sash across the chest. When the team plays internationally, the flag becomes a rallying point for millions of supporters, whether in stadiums or in homes. Victories are celebrated not only as sporting achievements, but also as moments of national pride, where the symbols of Peru shine brightly on a global stage. Like all nations, Peru's symbols have changed over time. Earlier flags included different patterns, such as diagonals or suns, reflecting the experimentation of the independence era. At times, the coat of arms has been modified, with different arrangements of its elements. These changes tell us that symbols are not frozen in time, but living signs that adapt to political and cultural shifts. Yet through these variations, the red and white stripes have remained constant, anchoring Peru's identity in a simple but enduring image. What makes the symbols of Peru especially striking is how they combine the modern and the ancient. The coat of arms celebrates natural resources that have been important for centuries. The condor and the sun recall traditions far older than the Republic. The flag, meanwhile, carries the memory of struggles for independence from Spanish colonial rule. Together, they remind Peruvians that their identity is not limited to one moment or one era, but stretches across centuries of history and layers of culture. Symbols are also a way of reaching beyond borders. When Peruvians travel abroad, the sight of the flag or the sound of the anthem can evoke powerful feelings of belonging. At embassies, international meetings, or cultural festivals, these symbols stand in for the country itself, carrying with them both pride and responsibility. They are a way of saying, "This is who we are, this is what we value, this is what connects us." So, in the red and white stripes, in the images of the vicuña, the cinchona, and the cornucopia, in the soaring condor and the radiant sun, we find the essence of Peru expressed in symbols. They tell of sacrifice and purity, of richness and resilience, of ancient roots and modern aspirations. They are more than decorations. They are stories made visible, condensed into colors and shapes that speak across time. And in their quiet way, they help to hold together a country of many peoples, many regions, and many voices. Economy and livelihoods. When we look at Peru through the lens of its economy, we see a country that has always been closely tied to the resources of its land and sea. The story of how people make their living here begins with geography and extends into global markets. From the deserts of the coast to the high mountains and the endless Amazon forest, every landscape offers opportunities and challenges, and together they form the foundation of Peru's livelihoods. Mining has long been one of the pillars of the Peruvian economy. The Andes are rich in minerals, and for centuries people have dug into their slopes to extract copper, gold, silver, and zinc. Even before the Spanish arrived, the Inca and earlier civilizations valued metals, though often for ceremonial rather than commercial purposes. In modern times, mining has become a major export sector, linking Peru to global demand for raw materials. Copper is especially important, making Peru one of the world's leading producers. Gold and silver also play a significant role, with large mines operating in the highlands. Mining brings jobs and income, but it also raises concerns about environmental impact, local rights, and the balance between profit and sustainability. For many communities in the mountains, mining is both a source of opportunity and a source of tension. Agriculture is another key part of the economy, and it reflects the diversity of Peru's landscapes. On the coast, where irrigation channels carry water from the Andes, farmers grow crops such as asparagus, grapes, and avocados for export. These products often end up in supermarkets thousands of kilometers away, showing how Peru's fields are linked to global tastes. In the highlands, agriculture is more traditional. Potatoes, maize, and quinoa are staples, cultivated on terraced fields that have been used for centuries. These crops are not only food but also symbols of resilience, adapted to harsh conditions and high altitudes. In the Amazon, farming takes a different form, with crops like bananas, cassava, and cacao providing both sustenance and income. Taken together, agriculture in Peru is both ancient and modern, subsistence and export-oriented, local and global. Fishing is another livelihood shaped by geography. The Pacific Ocean off Peru's coast is one of the richest fishing grounds in the world, thanks to the cold Humboldt Current that brings nutrients to the surface. Anchovies, in particular, are caught in enormous quantities and processed into fish meal, a product exported for use in animal feed. Other species, such as tuna and hake, also support the industry. Fishing is a reminder of how natural currents and invisible forces shape economies, providing abundance in some years and scarcity in others when conditions shift. Tourism is a newer but increasingly important sector. Visitors come from around the world to see Machu Picchu, the Sacred Valley, Lake Titicaca, the Nazca Lines, or the Amazon rainforest. Tourism provides jobs in hotels, restaurants, guiding, and transport, and it brings foreign currency into the country. It also showcases Peru's culture and history on a global stage. At the same time, tourism must be managed carefully, as too many visitors can damage fragile sites or overwhelm local communities. Finding the balance between sharing and preserving is a challenge that continues. Beyond these major sectors, Peru's economy has many other faces. Textiles, often based on alpaca and llama wool, are crafted for both local use and export. Coffee, grown in the slopes between the Andes and the Amazon, has gained international recognition for its quality. Cocoa, used for chocolate, is also an important crop in some regions. In the cities, manufacturing and services provide employment, from food processing and clothing factories to finance, education, and technology. The informal economy is significant as well, with many people working outside formal contracts or regulations, selling goods in markets, driving taxis, or offering services on small scales. For these workers, income can be unstable, but it remains essential for survival. Economic growth in Peru has been steady in recent decades, and poverty rates have fallen compared to the past. New infrastructure, foreign investment, and stronger exports have all contributed. Yet inequality remains. The wealth generated by mining or by agriculture for export does not always reach rural villages or urban neighborhoods on the margins. Indigenous communities, in particular, often face barriers to sharing fully in the benefits of economic progress. This gap between wealth and poverty, between growth and distribution, is one of the central challenges for the country. Livelihoods in Peru are not only about money or markets. They are also about traditions, family, and survival. In the Andes, many families still follow patterns of life that their ancestors practiced centuries ago, planting crops at certain altitudes, rotating fields, and celebrating harvest festivals that honor both earth and sky. In the Amazon, livelihoods may involve fishing, gathering fruits, and using the forest's plants for medicine or craft. These ways of life connect people directly to the natural cycles of their environment, reminding us that economy is not always separate from culture. At the same time, new forces are shaping the way Peruvians make their living. Globalization connects even remote areas to international markets. Climate change threatens glaciers, water supplies, and agricultural patterns. Migration brings people from rural areas to Lima and other cities, changing both countryside and urban landscapes. Young people, in particular, are seeking work in education, technology, and services, showing how the future economy will look different from the past. Yet even as these changes unfold, the roots of livelihoods remain in the land and the sea, in the mines, the fields, the rivers, and the coastlines. So, when we think of Peru's economy, we must imagine layers. At one layer, there is the global economy, with copper, gold, asparagus, and coffee moving across oceans. At another layer, there is the national economy, with jobs in offices, factories, and schools sustaining families in cities and towns. And at yet another deeper layer, there is the daily work of planting, fishing, weaving, and selling in local markets. All these layers exist together, sometimes harmonizing, sometimes conflicting, but always shaping the lives of millions. In the end, the economy of Peru is not just about numbers or trade statistics. It is about people making a living in a land of great variety. It is about resilience in the face of hardship, creativity in the use of resources, and adaptation to both old and new challenges. From the mines of the Andes to the fishing boats on the Pacific, from the terraces of potatoes to the coffee fields of the Amazon, livelihoods in Peru tell a story of connection between land, people, and the wider world. Quality of life and challenges. When we speak about quality of life in Peru, we are speaking about many layers that coexist. On one hand, there are stories of progress, longer life expectancy, lower poverty rates than in the past, and improvements in infrastructure, healthcare, and education. On the other hand, there are still deep challenges. Inequality between rich and poor, gaps between rural and urban areas, and the ongoing struggle against corruption and instability. To understand life in Peru today, we must hold both of these truths at the same time, progress and difficulty side by side. Let us begin with health. Over the last few decades, Peru has made strides in improving access to healthcare. Life expectancy today is above 75 years, a significant improvement from earlier generations. Vaccination campaigns, new hospitals, and better access to clean water have all contributed to this. Yet healthcare remains uneven. In Lima and other large cities, hospitals are better equipped and staffed. In rural highland villages or Amazonian communities, medical services may be far away, and reaching them can take hours or even days. Doctors and nurses are often concentrated in urban centers, leaving smaller communities underserved. For some families, even basic care is a challenge. Thus, while overall health indicators have improved, inequalities in access remain a central issue. Education tells a similar story. More children attend school than ever before, and literacy rates are high compared to past decades. Universities in Lima and other cities offer opportunities for higher education, and new programs aim to include indigenous languages and cultures in the classroom. Still, the quality of education varies. Urban schools often have more resources, better trained teachers, and access to technology. Rural schools may face shortages of materials, underpaid staff, and buildings that are poorly maintained. For children in remote areas, simply reaching a classroom can involve long walks over mountains or across rivers. Education is recognized as a key to opportunity, but the path is not equally smooth for everyone. Poverty has declined in Peru, yet it has not disappeared. In the early 2000s, nearly half the population lived below the national poverty line. Today, that number is closer to a quarter. This is a real achievement, tied to economic growth, better social programs, and increased trade. But millions still live in poverty, and many more live just above the poverty line, vulnerable to falling back if conditions worsen. Rural areas are particularly affected. Families in the highlands or Amazon often depend on subsistence farming or informal work, which provides little security. In contrast, urban centers have more opportunities, but also higher living costs, creating new pressures for families trying to improve their lives. Inequality is one of the deepest challenges. Peru is not a poor country in absolute terms. It has abundant natural resources, fertile land, and a growing economy. But wealth is not evenly shared. The gap between the wealthy elite in Lima and poor communities in rural provinces is wide. Indigenous populations, especially in the Andes and Amazon, face higher rates of poverty and lower access to services compared to other groups. This inequality is not only economic, but also social and cultural, as discrimination and exclusion continue to affect opportunities. Housing is another measure of quality of life. In Lima, modern apartments and houses rise in some neighborhoods, while in the outskirts, informal settlements expand as migrants from rural areas seek jobs in the city. These settlements, often called pueblos jóvenes, sometimes lack paved roads, reliable water, or electricity. Over time, Many of them are gradually formalized, gaining services and infrastructure. But for many families, the journey from precarious housing to secure living conditions is long. In rural areas, houses are often built from adobe, wood, or local materials, and while they serve their purpose, they may not withstand earthquakes or heavy rains. Housing, like so many aspects of life in Peru, reflects both progress and vulnerability. When we look at human development more broadly, Peru ranks in the medium to high range on the Human Development Index, an international measure that combines health, education, and income. It is not among the lowest in the world, but it is also not among the highest. Its position reflects both its achievements and its struggles. Compared with some of its neighbors, Peru is ahead in certain areas and behind in others, but its overall trajectory has been upward. This steady improvement is encouraging, but it also highlights how far there is still to go. Security and safety form another dimension of quality of life. Crime is a concern in many urban areas, especially in Lima, where theft, robbery, and organized crime affect daily life. In rural regions, crime is less common, but access to justice can be limited. Corruption, both small and large, also undermines trust in institutions. Many Peruvians express frustration with politics and governance, feeling that their leaders do not always act in the public interest. This lack of trust is itself a challenge, as it makes it harder to build strong institutions that people believe in. Environmental issues also affect quality of life. In the Andes, the retreat of glaciers threatens water supplies for farming and cities alike. In the Amazon, deforestation and mining damage ecosystems that sustain communities. On the coast, pollution and overfishing put pressure on marine resources. Climate change intensifies these problems, creating uncertainty for the future. For farmers who depend on rainfall or for fishers who depend on the ocean, these changes are not abstract. They are felt directly in daily livelihoods. Yet despite all of these challenges, Peru is also a country of resilience. Communities find ways to adapt, to celebrate, and to support one another. Festivals bring people together, even in the face of hardship. Families invest in education, hoping to give their children a better future. New businesses emerge, from technology startups in Lima to community tourism projects in the Andes. Civil society organizations, churches, and local groups step in where the state is absent, providing support and building networks of solidarity. This resilience is one of Peru's greatest strengths. So when we think of quality of life in Peru, we must picture a landscape of contrasts. A modern hospital in Lima and a rural clinic with few supplies. A thriving export farm on the coast and a subsistence field in the highlands. A family moving out of poverty in the city and another struggling to find work in the jungle. The progress is real, but so are the difficulties. Together, they make up the complex reality of life in Peru today. And perhaps this mixture itself is the most Peruvian of qualities. A country that is neither only successful nor only struggling, but one that lives in both realities at once. A place where people celebrate what has been achieved, even as they continue to push against the weight of challenges. In this balance of hope and hardship, Peru reveals its human face, diverse, resilient, and always striving for something better. History. The history of Peru stretches back thousands of years, and it is as layered as the mountains and valleys of the land itself. To speak of Peru is to speak of ancient civilizations, of empires that rose and fell, of colonial rule, independence, and the long journey into the modern age. Each era has left its mark, visible in ruins, traditions, languages, and the memories of communities across the country. When we move through this history slowly, we begin to see how the Peru of today is deeply rooted in the Peru of yesterday. The earliest known cultures in Peru go back as far as 5,000 years. Along the coast, the Norte Chico civilization flourished, building some of the oldest cities in the Americas. With their pyramids and plazas, they remind us that organized societies in Peru developed long before the better-known empires of later times. Over the centuries that followed, many different cultures rose in different regions. The Moche on the northern coast created elaborate pottery and impressive temples. The Nazca in the south left behind the mysterious lines etched into the desert, vast geoglyphs of animals and shapes whose exact purpose we still debate. In the highlands, the Wari built administrative centers and developed roads that foreshadowed later achievements. Each of these cultures added a piece to the mosaic that would eventually form the foundation of the Inca Empire. The Incas, who emerged in the early 1400s, created the largest empire in pre-Columbian America. From their capital in Cusco, they ruled a vast territory stretching from modern-day Colombia in the north to Chile and Argentina in the south. Their system of government was highly organized, with roads linking distant regions, terraces carved into mountain slopes for farming, and storehouses that provided food in times of scarcity. The Incas did not use writing in the way we know it, but they kept records through quipus, bundles of knotted cords that carried information in a unique coded form. Their architecture, seen most famously in Machu Picchu, reveals a deep knowledge of stonework, engineering, and harmony with the natural environment. Yet the Inca Empire, for all its achievements, lasted only a short time before it was confronted by forces from across the sea. In the early 16th century, Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro arrived on the coast of Peru. They encountered an empire weakened by civil war between two brothers, Atahualpa and Huáscar, who had fought over succession to the throne. Taking advantage of this division, the Spaniards captured Atahualpa in 1532 and soon took control of Cusco. Within a few years, the Inca Empire had collapsed under the weight of foreign weapons, new diseases, and the ruthless tactics of conquest. The Spanish established a colonial order that would last for nearly 3 centuries. Lima was founded in 1535 and became the capital of the Viceroyalty of Peru, one of the most important centers of Spanish power in South America. Colonial Peru was marked by extraction and hierarchy. Silver from mines such as Potosí, though technically in present-day Bolivia, flowed through Peruvian ports to Spain and fueled the global economy of the time. Indigenous peoples were forced into labor systems that caused suffering and displacement. At the same time, Spanish culture, language, and religion became dominant, blending with existing traditions to create new forms of life. Churches rose on top of old temples, and Catholic festivals absorbed elements of Andean rituals. The society that emerged was deeply unequal, with Spaniards and their descendants holding power, while indigenous and enslaved African populations carried much of the burden of labor. The 18th century brought unrest, as discontent grew among those excluded from power. Rebellions erupted, the most famous being that of Tupac Amaru II in 1780. Claiming descent from the Inca nobility, he led a major uprising against Spanish rule, demanding justice for indigenous communities. Though the rebellion was crushed, it left a lasting legacy of resistance and became a symbol of future independence movements. Independence came in the early 19th century as the tide of revolution swept across Latin America. Leaders such as José de San Martín and Simón Bolívar played decisive roles. San Martín declared Peru's independence in Lima in 1821, and Bolívar's forces secured victory in battles during the years that followed. By 1824, Peru was free from Spanish colonial rule, though the challenges of building a new nation were only beginning. The 19th century after independence was turbulent. Peru faced wars with neighboring countries, including the War of the Pacific against Chile in the 1870s, which resulted in the loss of valuable coastal territory. Political instability was common, with frequent changes of government and power struggles among elites. Yet the country also experienced gradual modernization, with railroads, new industries, and growing cities. The 20th century brought both progress and hardship. Population growth, migration from countryside to city, and new industries changed the social fabric. Yet inequality persisted, and indigenous communities continued to face marginalization. In the 1960s and 70s, military governments attempted land reform, redistributing estates to peasants. These reforms had mixed results, alleviating some injustices, but failing to fully resolve economic problems. In the 1980s and 1990s, Peru faced one of its darkest chapters with the rise of the Shining Path, a violent Maoist insurgency that terrorized rural communities and clashed with the state. Tens of thousands of lives were lost, and the scars of that conflict remain. At the same time, Peru also struggled with authoritarianism and corruption. President Alberto Fujimori, who came to power in 1990, is remembered for defeating the Shining Path and stabilizing the economy, but also for human rights abuses and corruption that led to his downfall. Since then, Peru has returned to democracy, but political life has remained unsettled, with frequent scandals, impeachments, and resignations. In the 21st century, Peru has experienced economic growth, fueled by mining, agriculture, and trade. Poverty rates have declined, cities have expanded, and infrastructure has improved. Yet challenges remain. Inequality between regions, environmental concerns in the Amazon and the Andes, and the instability of politics that continues to shake confidence in institutions. Through it all, Peruvians have shown resilience, drawing on their diverse heritage and cultural traditions to navigate the present. So, the history of Peru is not a single story, but many stories woven together. It is the story of ancient civilizations carving lines into the desert and terraces into the mountains. It is the story of empires rising and falling, of conquest and resistance, of suffering and survival. It is the story of independence, of wars and reforms, of violence and renewal. And it is the ongoing story of a country still shaping its identity, balancing the weight of its past with the promise of its future. The country today. When we turn our eyes to Peru in the present day, we see a country of contrasts, a place where tradition and modernity, wealth and poverty, hope and challenge all coexist. It is a country that has made progress in many areas, yet still faces problems that are deeply rooted in its geography, history, and society. To describe Peru today is to describe not a single uniform reality, but a landscape of many realities, each overlapping and influencing the others. The capital city of Lima is the natural starting point. Home to nearly a third of the country's population, Lima is a sprawling metropolis that stretches along the Pacific coast. Here, glass office towers and shopping malls stand alongside colonial-era churches and historic plazas. In its restaurants, chefs blend traditional ingredients with modern techniques, making Lima a global capital of cuisine. In its universities, students study technology, medicine, law, and the arts, preparing for futures that connect Peru to the wider world. Yet in the same city, vast neighborhoods known as pueblos jóvenes expand on the hillsides and outskirts, where many families live without steady access to water, electricity, or secure jobs. The daily life of Lima thus includes both prosperity and struggle, sometimes only a few streets apart. Beyond Lima, other cities each have their own character. Cusco, once the capital of the Inca Empire, is both a cultural center and a tourist hub, where ancient stone walls stand next to modern hotels. Arequipa, built from white volcanic stone, is known as the White City and serves as an economic and cultural anchor in the south. Trujillo and Chiclayo on the northern coast thrive on agriculture and commerce, while Iquitos in the Amazon can only be reached by river or air, reminding us how geography continues to shape connectivity. Each city reflects a different face of Peru, shaped by its region's history, economy, and environment. Outside the cities, much of Peru remains rural. In the Andes, families continue to farm terraced fields, raising potatoes, quinoa, and maize, and herding alpacas and llamas. Life here is shaped by the rhythm of the seasons and the demands of altitude. Festivals are tied to harvests and communities are close-knit, with traditions passed down through generations. In the Amazon, villages line the rivers and livelihoods depend on fishing, small-scale farming, and the forest itself. Here, modern influences mix with indigenous traditions, and life moves at a slower pace, shaped by the great river systems and the cycles of rain. The economy of Peru today is both global and local. Copper, gold, and silver are exported to markets around the world. Asparagus, coffee, cocoa, and avocados travel by ship and plane to distant supermarkets. At the same time, in markets across Peru, families buy and sell produce, textiles, and crafts, continuing a pattern of local trade that has existed for centuries. Tourism is a growing source of income, bringing visitors to Machu Picchu, Lake Titicaca, and the Amazon rainforest. Yet tourism also poses questions about preservation, as communities and governments seek to balance economic benefits with the protection of fragile sites and traditions. Social life in Peru today reflects its diversity. Spanish remains the dominant language, but millions continue to speak Quechua, Aymara, or one of the many indigenous languages of the Amazon. Catholicism is widespread, but Andean rituals to honor the earth, the mountains, and the seasons continue to be practiced, often blending with Christian festivals. Afro-Peruvian music, Andean panpipes, and Amazonian traditions all contribute to a cultural mosaic that is vibrant and constantly evolving. Food is a major expression of this identity, with dishes such as ceviche, lomo saltado, and countless varieties of potatoes serving as symbols of national pride. Modern Peru faces both achievements and difficulties. Poverty has been reduced compared to earlier decades, and many families now enjoy better access to education, healthcare, and housing. Infrastructure has improved, with new highways, airports, and digital connections linking remote areas to the wider world. Yet inequality remains stark. Urban centers, especially Lima, continue to draw people from rural areas, creating pressure on housing and services. Indigenous communities often remain marginalized, and environmental issues, such as deforestation in the Amazon, glacier retreat in the Andes, and pollution on the coast, present ongoing risks. Politics in Peru today is marked by frequent instability. Presidents rarely complete their full terms without facing protests, scandals, or impeachment attempts. Corruption remains a widespread concern, and many Peruvians express frustration with leaders whom they see as disconnected from ordinary people's lives. At the same time, civil society is active and protests, community organizations, and social movements show that citizens continue to demand accountability and change. Democracy in Peru may feel fragile, but it is alive and contested. The daily experience of living in Peru reflects this mixture of progress and struggle. In Lima, some enjoy a modern lifestyle with smartphones, international travel, and access to global culture, while others work long hours in informal jobs just to make ends meet. In the Andes, families balance tradition and modernity, sending children to school while still maintaining age-old farming practices. In the Amazon, communities adapt to modern pressures while holding fast to traditions rooted in the forest. Across the country, people are negotiating the balance between preserving what is old and embracing what is new. In recent years, Peru has also faced global challenges that have tested its resilience. The COVID-19 pandemic hit the country hard, exposing weaknesses in the healthcare system and deepening economic inequality. Recovery has been uneven, with some sectors rebounding quickly and others still struggling. At the same time, climate change has become more visible, threatening water supplies, agriculture, and ecosystems. These challenges remind Peruvians that progress is never guaranteed, and that resilience and adaptation remain necessary. And yet, Peru today is also full of vitality. Its art, music, and food are celebrated around the world. Its landscapes continue to draw visitors who marvel at the Andes, the Amazon, and the Pacific coast. Its people, young and old, urban and rural, are finding new ways to adapt, to innovate, and to carry forward traditions that go back centuries. The country is far from perfect, but it is alive, diverse, and dynamic. To live in Peru today is to live in a land where history is always present, where geography shapes daily life, and where society continues to change and grow. So when we pause to think about the country today, we should not imagine only its struggles or only its achievements. We must imagine both. A country where a farmer in the highlands plants potatoes as his ancestors did, while a young entrepreneur in Lima builds a technology startup. A country where indigenous languages are spoken in villages, while Spanish fills the air in global conferences. A country where the old and the new, the local and the global meet every day. That, more than anything else, is what Peru is today, a living balance of contrasts, full of challenges but also full of strength. Travel. To speak about travel in Peru is to open a doorway into landscapes and experiences that are as varied as the country itself. For some, travel to Peru means standing among the stone walls of Machu Picchu, looking out over clouds drifting across the Andes. For others, it means gliding in a boat on Lake Titicaca, or walking through the markets of Cusco, or venturing into the deep forest of the Amazon. To move across Peru is to pass through many worlds, each with its own rhythm and its own character, and each leaving a lasting impression. Most travelers begin their journey in Lima, the capital and the hub of international flights. The city itself offers a mix of colonial history, modern neighborhoods, and a vibrant culinary scene that has gained international fame. For many visitors, Lima is more than just a stopover. It is a chance to experience Peru's coastal culture, to walk along the Pacific cliffs of Miraflores, to explore museums that tell the stories of ancient civilizations, and to taste ceviche prepared with fish caught the same morning. But for many, Lima is just the starting point, and soon they head into the mountains or the jungle, following the geography that makes Peru so unique. Machu Picchu remains the most famous destination. Perched high on a mountain ridge, it is reached by train from Cusco, or on foot along the Inca Trail, a path that winds through forests, valleys, and ruins before arriving at the Sun Gate, with the lost city revealed below. Standing among the terraces and temples of Machu Picchu, visitors feel a connection not only to the Incas who built it, but also to the natural setting of peaks and clouds that surround it. It is a place where human history and natural beauty meet in perfect harmony, and for many, it is the highlight of their journey. Cusco itself is another treasure. Once the capital of the Inca Empire, its streets still carry the marks of history, with stone walls built by the Incas forming the foundations of colonial Spanish buildings. The main square, the Plaza de Armas, is surrounded by churches and shops, while narrow streets climb into neighborhoods filled with markets and workshops. Cusco is not just a museum of the past. It is a living city where traditions are alive, festivals fill the streets with music and dance, and travelers mingle with locals in daily routines. Further south, Lake Titicaca offers a very different kind of journey. At nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, it feels like a sea in the sky. The lake is dotted with islands, some natural and some man-made, such as the floating islands of the Uros people, constructed from reeds. Traveling across the water, one can visit communities that still live by fishing, farming, and weaving, holding on to traditions that have endured for centuries. The combination of vast open water, snow-capped mountains in the distance, and the quiet life of the islands creates an experience that is both majestic and serene. In the Amazon basin, travel takes on another character. From cities like Iquitos or Puerto Maldonado, visitors can enter the rainforest by boat or on foot, guided through a world of immense biodiversity. The air is humid, the forest dense, and the sounds of birds and insects constant. Lodges in the jungle allow visitors to experience the forest with some comfort, while community projects connect tourism to local livelihoods. Here, travel is not only about seeing exotic wildlife, but also about understanding the fragile balance of ecosystems and the importance of conservation. The Nazca lines offer a mystery for travelers to ponder. From the air, these massive geoglyphs stretch across the desert floor, lines forming hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric patterns. Their purpose remains debated, but their scale is astonishing. A flight over the Nazca Desert reveals the human capacity to create on a scale visible only from above, and it leaves visitors wondering about the people who first carved them into the earth. Peru also offers travel experiences shaped by its cuisine. Food tours, cooking classes, and local markets invite visitors to taste and learn. Ceviche on the coast, quinoa and potatoes in the highlands, exotic fruits in the jungle, and the national drink, pisco, all form part of the journey. Peruvian cuisine is not just about flavor but about history, combining indigenous traditions with Spanish, African, Chinese, and Japanese influences. To eat in Peru is to travel through centuries of cultural exchange. Practical aspects of travel are important to mention. Peru's geography means that moving between regions often requires flights or long bus journeys. Roads wind through mountains and along coasts, sometimes slowly and unpredictably. Trains connect Cusco to Machu Picchu, but much of the Andes is reached only by road. In the Amazon, boats are essential. Altitude is another consideration. Cusco, Lake Titicaca, and many other destinations are at high elevations, and travelers must adapt slowly to avoid sickness. The climate also varies greatly. On the coast, days may be mild and dry. In the Andes, temperatures can swing from warm sun to freezing nights. In the Amazon, heat and humidity dominate with sudden rains. Safety is a common question for travelers. Most visits to Peru are safe, but like in any country, petty theft can occur in crowded areas. Travelers are advised to take normal precautions, especially in large cities. Health is another consideration. Vaccinations, mosquito protection in the Amazon, and care with water and food are part of preparation. Yet with some planning and respect for local advice, travel is generally smooth and rewarding. Cost is another factor. Peru can be affordable compared to many destinations, with options for budget travelers as well as luxury seekers. Hostels, buses, and market meals make it accessible, while boutique hotels, guided treks, and fine dining cater to those who seek comfort. The variety of choices makes Peru open to travelers of many kinds, from backpackers exploring on a shoestring to families or couples seeking a more comfortable journey. In the end, to travel in Peru is to experience contrasts. It is to stand at the edge of the Pacific, then within a day to walk in the high Andes, and within another to sail a river deep in the Amazon. It is to move from deserts to forests, from bustling cities to quiet villages, from ancient ruins to modern streets. Each step reveals a new layer, and together they form a journey unlike any other. Travel here is not only about seeing sights. It is about feeling the variety of the world within a single country, and about recognizing how geography, culture, and history combine to shape every encounter. So when we imagine travel in Peru, we should not think only of Machu Picchu, though it is extraordinary. We should also think of the coast, the highlands, the jungle, the food, the people, and the journeys themselves. For in Peru, travel is not one story but many, and each traveler, in their own way, adds another thread to the ongoing fabric of the country. Fun facts. When we step aside from the main paths of geography, history, and politics, and instead linger over the curious and the unexpected, we often find details that make a country feel more alive. Peru, with its mixture of landscapes, traditions, and mysteries, is rich in such details. Some are surprising, some are amusing, and others simply remind us how unusual and varied the world can be. These fun facts, though perhaps not essential, give us a more playful perspective on the country. One of the most delightful curiosities about Peru is its potatoes. The potato, so common today across the globe, has its origins in the Andean highlands. Peru is home to thousands of varieties, each adapted to different soils, altitudes, and climates. Some are small and blue, others large and yellow, some long and knobby, others round and smooth. Farmers in the Andes have cultivated these varieties for centuries, and the potato remains a staple food. Today, scientists recognize Peru as a center of genetic diversity for this humble tuber, and the International Potato Center in Lima preserves samples and promotes research. To visit a market in the highlands is to see a rainbow of potatoes, a reminder that what might seem ordinary is, in fact, extraordinary in its variety. Another quirky fact is that Peruvians eat guinea pigs, known locally as cuy. While in many countries these animals are kept as pets, in Peru they have long been a source of food. Cuy are roasted or fried, often served whole on a plate, especially during festivals or family gatherings. For visitors, this can be a surprising sight, but for many Peruvians it is a traditional dish with deep cultural roots, especially in the Andes. Eating cuy is not only about food, but also about honoring a practice that has been passed down through generations. Peru is also known for the unusual lines drawn across the desert near Nazca. The Nazca lines, enormous geoglyphs created around 2,000 years ago, stretch for kilometers across the arid plain. They form shapes of animals such as hummingbirds, monkeys, and spiders, as well as geometric patterns and long straight lines. Their purpose remains uncertain. Some suggest they were ceremonial, others that they were linked to astronomy or water rituals. What is certain is that they are best seen from the air, which makes them seem almost designed for future generations who would arrive with airplanes. Few other places on Earth contain mysteries of such scale and endurance. On the topic of altitude, Peru is home to one of the world's highest railway journeys. The train from Lima to Huancayo climbs through the Andes, reaching altitudes of over 4,800 meters above sea level. Passengers feel the thin air, and oxygen is sometimes supplied in the carriages. The journey passes through tunnels, across bridges, and along sheer cliffs, offering views that are both breathtaking and dizzying. It is a reminder of how engineering has adapted to geography, and how travel in Peru often involves dramatic encounters with the natural world. Peru also has one of the deepest canyons on Earth. The Colca Canyon, near Arequipa, plunges to a depth of more than 3,000 meters, making it about twice as deep as the Grand Canyon in the United States. Visitors to Colca Canyon often watch Andean condors soar on thermal currents, their wings spread wide as they glide effortlessly over the vast landscape. The sight of these birds, sacred to Andean cultures, adds to the grandeur of the canyon and makes it one of Peru's natural wonders. A lighter detail is that Peru has its own soft drink that rivals global brands in popularity. Inca Kola, bright yellow in color and sweet in taste, is beloved by many Peruvians. Its flavor has been described as fruity, bubblegum-like, or simply unique, and it holds a place in national identity. When international companies tried to dominate the market, Inca Kola remained so popular that they eventually partnered with it rather than replacing it. To drink Inca Kola is to taste something distinctly Peruvian, a symbol of pride as much as refreshment. Festivals provide another area of unusual richness. Peru has countless local and regional celebrations, many blending Catholic traditions with indigenous rituals. One of the most famous is Inti Raymi, the Festival of the Sun, held in Cusco each June. This celebration, rooted in Inca traditions, honors the sun god with parades, music, and reenactments. Another is the Lord of Miracles procession in Lima, where thousands of people dressed in purple follow a painting of Christ through the streets, creating one of the largest religious gatherings in the world. These festivals show how culture in Peru is lived in public, with devotion, color, and community. Animals also add to Peru's curiosities. The country is home to the vicuña, a wild relative of the llama and alpaca. Vicuña wool is among the finest and most expensive fibers in the world, once reserved for Inca royalty. Today, vicuñas roam in the high Andes, protected by conservation programs. Their presence is a reminder of the delicate balance between tradition, nature, and modern markets. Similarly, the Andean bear, also known as the spectacled bear for the markings around its eyes, is unique to the region and has become a symbol of Andean wildlife. Another fun fact is that Peru is the birthplace of surfing in South America. Along its long Pacific coastline, surfers ride waves that are sometimes hundreds of meters long. The town of Huanchaco claims a special place in this history, where fishermen have long used reed boats called caballitos de tatora to ride the waves, both for work and, in some cases, for sport. Surfing in Peru is not only modern recreation, but also an echo of ancient traditions tied to the sea. Finally, Peru's diversity of climate and altitude means it contains almost every type of environment found on Earth, from deserts to glaciers, from tropical forests to high plateaus. For this reason, scientists often call it a megadiverse country. This richness is reflected not only in plants and animals, but also in cultures and ways of life. A journey of just a few hours can take you from coastal desert to mountain peaks to rainforest, each with its own flavors, languages, and traditions. Few places contain such variety in such close proximity. So, when we gather these fun facts together, we see Peru from a lighter angle. We see potatoes in 1,000 forms, guinea pigs on festival plates, mysterious lines across a desert, condors soaring above deep canyons, trains climbing into thin air, and bright yellow soft drinks enjoyed on city streets. These details may not change the grand narrative of history or politics, but they bring color, humor, and humanity to our understanding. They remind us that countries are not only serious and formal, but also surprising and playful, full of quirks that make them unforgettable. Famous people and culture. Peru is a land where history, geography, and people come together to create a culture that is both ancient and modern, both deeply rooted and constantly changing. To explore its famous figures and cultural life is to step into a broad landscape of literature, music, food, art, and sport, each shaped by the diversity of the country's people. These stories of individuals and traditions help us see Peru not just as a place on the map, but as a living society that contributes to the wider world. Perhaps the most internationally recognized Peruvian figure in recent times is Mario Vargas Llosa, the writer and Nobel Prize laureate in literature. His novels, essays, and plays explore the complexities of Peruvian society, touching on politics, history, and personal struggle. Works like The Time of the Hero, Conversation in the Cathedral, and The Feast of the Goat have gained global recognition, and his career has made him one of Latin America's most celebrated voices. Through his writing, the world has glimpsed the tensions, contradictions, and humanity of Peru. In the realm of music, Guayame Sumac stands out as a name that many remember. A singer with a voice of extraordinary range, she became famous in the mid-20th century for her ability to sing notes spanning more than 4 octaves. Her performances blended Andean influences with popular styles of the time, bringing the sounds of Peru to international audiences. Afro-Peruvian music has also produced celebrated figures, such as Susana Baca, whose songs blend tradition and modernity, and who has served as a cultural ambassador for her country. The haunting melodies of the Andean panpipes, the rhythms of cajon drums in Afro-Peruvian traditions, and the lively sounds of festivals all contribute to a musical identity that is rich and varied. Peruvian cuisine has also gained fame worldwide, and with it, several chefs have become cultural figures in their own right. Gaston Acurio is perhaps the most famous, often called an ambassador of Peruvian food. His work has brought dishes like ceviche, lomo saltado, and anticuchos to global attention, and his influence has helped make Lima a culinary capital. Nikkei cuisine, blending Japanese and Peruvian traditions, has also gained international prestige, with chefs like Mitsuharu Tsumura known for innovative and acclaimed restaurants. Food in Peru is not just nourishment but a cultural statement, one that tells stories of indigenous crops, colonial influences, migration, and creativity. In the visual arts, Fernando de Cislo became one of the leading painters of the 20th century, blending abstraction with references to pre-Columbian imagery. His works demonstrate how Peruvian artists engage with both global trends and local traditions. Photographers such as Martín Chambi, who documented life in the Andes in the early 20th century, have also left lasting cultural legacies, capturing images of people, landscapes, and traditions that continue to shape how Peru sees itself. Sports provide another field of fame and cultural pride. Football is by far the most popular sport, and the Peruvian national team has given fans moments of joy and heartbreak in equal measure. Figures such as Teófilo Cubillos, one of the stars of the 1970s, remain celebrated as legends of the game. More recently, players like Paulo Guerrero and Jefferson Farfan have carried the flag on the international stage. While football dominates, volleyball has also brought Peru recognition, with the women's national team achieving success in international competitions. These sports are more than games. They are spaces where national identity is expressed, where victories are celebrated collectively, and where symbols like the red and white flag become charged with emotion. Beyond individuals, culture in Peru is lived every day in traditions, festivals, and crafts. The Andean highlands are known for weaving, where textiles carry patterns that encode stories, beliefs, and identities. Brightly colored ponchos, shawls, and belts are not only practical clothing, but also cultural statements, linking families and communities to their heritage. Pottery, jewelry, and woodwork add to this richness, with designs that often blend ancient motifs with contemporary creativity. These crafts are not just souvenirs. They are expressions of a way of seeing and understanding the world. Festivals are another essential part of cultural life. They combine Catholic and indigenous traditions, filling streets and plazas with music, dance, and color. The Fiesta de la Candelaria in Puno is one of the largest, bringing together thousands of dancers and musicians in celebration. Inti Raymi in Cusco reenacts Inca rituals to honor the sun. The Lord of Miracles procession in Lima draws enormous crowds dressed in purple, uniting faith and community. These festivals reveal how culture is not only preserved but also performed, shared, and renewed every year. The influence of indigenous traditions on culture cannot be overstated. Quechua and Aymara languages, Andean music, and rituals tied to the earth and the seasons remain central to the lives of millions. In the Amazon, indigenous groups maintain practices that connect them to the forest and rivers, from fishing techniques to spiritual ceremonies. Afro-Peruvian communities contribute rhythms, dances, and stories shaped by centuries of resilience and creativity. Migration from Asia has added new dimensions, particularly in cuisine and commerce. Together, these influences form a cultural mosaic that is dynamic and diverse. Cinema in Peru has also grown, with filmmakers exploring themes of identity, history, and modern challenges. Movies such as La Teta Asustada, The Milk of Sorrow, which won international awards, tell stories rooted in Peruvian experiences while reaching global audiences. The film industry remains small, but it is gaining recognition as another avenue for cultural expression. So when we think of famous people and culture in Peru, we must not only list names and achievements, but also remember the deeper story. It is the story of writers who give voice to the complexities of society, singers who carry Andean echoes to global stages, chefs who transform food into a cultural bridge, and athletes who embody the dreams of millions. It is also the story of communities weaving textiles, carving wood, dancing in festivals, and speaking in many languages. Culture in Peru is both high and popular, both local and international, both traditional and innovative. It reflects the country's diversity, its history of blending, and its capacity to create new forms while honoring old ones. In this sense, Peru's culture is not something separate from daily life. It is daily life itself, expressed in words, music, food, sport, art, and ritual. It is lived in villages and cities, in markets and stadiums, in kitchens and workshops. It is what makes Peru more than a set of borders on a map. It makes Peru a living community of people, whose creativity and resilience continue to shape the world's understanding of them, and of the country they call home. Strengths and challenges recap. As we draw near the end of our long journey through Peru, it is helpful to pause and bring together what we have seen. This country, with its many landscapes and cultures, shines brightly in some areas and struggles deeply in others. Its strengths are clear, and so are its challenges. To see both sides together gives us a balanced understanding, and helps us appreciate Peru not only as a tourist destination or a historic land, but as a living nation of people facing the complexities of the modern world. Among its greatest strengths is geography. Few countries hold such variety within their borders. From the Pacific coast, with its rich fisheries and desert valleys, to the soaring Andes with their glaciers and high plains, to the vast Amazon basin with its dense forests and endless rivers, Peru contains within itself almost every type of landscape. This variety is more than scenic beauty. It gives the country resources, biodiversity, and cultural richness. It allows for farming of countless crops, for mining of precious minerals, and for tourism experiences that range from mountain treks to jungle expeditions. Geography is a gift, though not always an easy one. Culture is another of Peru's treasures. The blend of indigenous, European, African, and Asian influences has produced a society that is deeply diverse. Quechua and Aymara traditions endure in music, weaving, and ritual. Afro-Peruvian rhythms echo in songs and dance. Japanese and Chinese migrations have left lasting marks on food and commerce. Catholic celebrations mix with indigenous festivals, producing some of the most colorful and vibrant events in the world. Writers, artists, musicians, and chefs continue to share Peru's creativity on global stages, making culture not just a national strength, but a contribution to the wider human community. The economy is also a source of strength. Though uneven, Peru has experienced steady growth in recent decades. Mining, agriculture, and tourism provide income and jobs, while exports connect Peru to global markets. The reduction in poverty compared with past decades is a sign that progress has been real, even if incomplete. New industries, from technology to gastronomy, are creating opportunities for younger generations. Resilience is evident as people adapt to challenges and find ways to sustain themselves in cities, villages, and remote forests alike. Social resilience is another strength. Despite inequality and hardship, communities remain strong. Families support one another, neighbors gather to help in times of need, and traditions endure. In the Andes, terraced farming continues. In the Amazon, indigenous groups maintain cultural practices tied to the forest. In Lima, new generations seek education and opportunities, working to shape a more inclusive society. This resilience is part of what has carried Peru through wars, crises, and natural disasters, and it remains an essential feature of the country today. But alongside these strengths, Peru faces serious challenges. Inequality is perhaps the most pressing. The gap between rural and urban areas, between indigenous communities and wealthy elites, between regions and the capital is wide. Access to healthcare, education, and secure employment is not evenly distributed. Many Peruvians remain vulnerable to economic shocks, illness, or political instability. For those living in informal housing on the edge of Lima, or in remote mountain villages, or deep in the jungle, life is often much harder than in the prosperous neighborhoods of the capital. Politics is another challenge. While Peru is a democracy with regular elections, it is also a country where instability is frequent. Presidents are often removed or pressured to resign before completing their terms. Corruption scandals have shaken public trust again and again. This instability makes it difficult to create long-term policies, and it discourages confidence in institutions. Citizens continue to demand better, but the path towards stable and transparent governance remains uneven. Environmental pressures weigh heavily. In the Andes, glaciers are retreating due to climate change, threatening water supplies for millions. In the Amazon, deforestation from logging, farming, and mining reduces biodiversity and damages indigenous communities. On the coast, overfishing and pollution threaten marine resources. Climate change adds unpredictability to weather, making farming more difficult and disasters more likely. These environmental issues are not separate from human life. They are directly linked to livelihoods, culture, and survival. Poverty, though reduced, continues to affect millions. For many families, economic progress has lifted them just above the poverty line, but without security. A sudden illness, job loss, or natural disaster can push them back. Rural poverty is especially severe, and indigenous groups often face the greatest barriers. The challenge is not only to reduce poverty further, but also to create conditions where prosperity is shared more fairly and more sustainably. Urban growth presents yet another difficulty. Lima, with its rapid expansion, struggles with traffic, pollution, and infrastructure demands. Informal settlements continue to grow, sometimes without proper planning, making them vulnerable to earthquakes, floods, or landslides. Balancing the needs of a growing urban population with the preservation of heritage, safety, and sustainability is a constant task. Taken together, Peru's strengths and challenges create a picture of contrast. On one hand, extraordinary landscapes, rich culture, and resilient communities. On the other hand, inequality, instability, and environmental threats. These contrasts do not cancel each other out. Rather, they coexist, making Peru a country of complexity and depth. To understand it fully is to recognize that it is neither simply successful nor simply struggling, but both at once. And perhaps this balance itself is what defines Peru most clearly. A country that holds both beauty and hardship, both progress and struggle. A country where one can marvel at Machu Picchu while also confronting poverty in nearby villages. A country that exports copper and coffee to the world while still depending on ancient crops like potatoes and quinoa for daily sustenance. A country where political turmoil and cultural pride exist in the same space, shaping how people live and how they see their future. So, in this recap, we see Peru as a nation of remarkable strengths: geography, culture, economy, and resilience. And we see it as a nation facing serious challenges: inequality, instability, environmental risk, and persistent poverty. To hold both truths at once is not to weaken the picture, but to strengthen it. For only by acknowledging the difficulties can we fully appreciate the achievements. And only by celebrating the strengths can we see the hope for overcoming the challenges. As we come to the end of our long, slow journey through Peru, it is time to gather our thoughts and let them settle. We have moved from coast to mountains to rainforest, and we have seen how geography shapes not only the land but also the lives of the people who call it home. We have looked at ancient civilizations, at colonial legacies, and at the struggles and resilience of modern society. We have paused with symbols, explored livelihoods, wandered into history, and reflected on strengths and challenges. Through it all, Peru has revealed itself not as one story, but as many, layered, complex, and full of contrasts. What we carry with us now is a sense of variety. Peru is at once the desert coastline of Lima and the terraced fields of Cusco. It is the floating islands on Lake Titicaca and the endless green of the Amazon basin. It is thousands of potato varieties, the mystery of the Nazca lines, and the music of panpipes echoing in mountain valleys. It is a Nobel Prize-winning writer, a legendary football team, and families gathering to celebrate festivals that blend the Catholic calendar with ancient rituals. Peru is not just one image, but a mosaic, where each piece is different, and yet together they form something whole. We also carry a sense of balance. For every strength, there is a challenge. For every sign of progress, there remains a difficulty. Poverty has been reduced, yet inequality persists. Culture flourishes, yet political instability weighs heavily. Natural resources are abundant, yet the environment is fragile. This balance is not a weakness, but a reality, a reminder that nations, like people, live in both light and shadow. To see both sides is to see Peru more clearly, with honesty and with respect. Throughout this episode, we have spoken slowly, carefully, allowing each detail to unfold. The purpose has not been to overwhelm with facts, but to create a space where knowledge and calm can coexist. Perhaps you have followed closely, imagining the landscapes and people. Perhaps you have drifted in and out, letting the rhythm of words accompany your thoughts. Or perhaps you are already asleep, the story of Peru becoming part of your dreams. However you have listened, I thank you for joining this journey. Before we close, let us remember that mistakes may occur. We do our best to be accurate, but no telling of a country is ever perfect. If you know Peru well, if you live there, or if you come from there, your comments are especially welcome. Corrections, additions, and perspectives help this project grow richer, and they honor the idea that knowledge is shared, not owned. This series is not only about telling, but also about listening, and every contribution deepens the story. And so, with gratitude, we end our episode on Peru. From its Pacific shores to its Andean peaks, from its rainforests to its cities, it is a land that continues to inspire, to challenge, and to endure. Thank you for listening to the world's countries. If you have enjoyed this calm exploration, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment. It helps us to continue, and it helps others find these journeys. For now, let the story of Peru rest gently in your mind, like mist settling over mountain terraces, like the still waters of a highland lake. May it accompany you into sleep, or simply into a moment of quiet. Until next time, when we turn to another country and begin again, we leave Peru here, vast, diverse, and unforgettable.